My name is Julie Blaha, and I'm the Minnesota State Auditor. Let's hear it, audit fans. And thank you, my nerds, for appreciating this. My role in Minnesota is I oversee about $60 billion in government activity. And in Minnesota, the Office of State Auditor primarily works with local government, so cities, counties, townships, school districts. It's kind of where the action is. And so it's always great to be doing this in a regular town, talking about big shot federal stuff, which is kind of exciting for me. My job tonight basically is to help moderate. And okay, if you came here thinking this was going to be the kind of debate that you get to see on the TV, where there's going to be fighting and drama and jumping over and stuff, I'm sorry. We decided to get Minnesota here and actually do something just crazy. We're going to talk issues. And we're just going to talk issues. We're not going to be slamming each other, coming out, doing that kind of thing. It really is so that you can get an understanding about what these candidates think about things, which I think is going to be just a great evening. And so you see their names out in front. Well, I think we can go through the PowerPoint for Bennett. Like you'll hear from Bennett, who's running the I'm also here for all the people at CD6DFL, a bunch more right back there who set us up tonight. And if we can thank the American Legion and particularly our wonderful bartender, let's give them all a round of applause. All right, well, with that, I know that you want to hear from these candidates. I also live in the 6th Congressional District. Let's hear Sixers. I'm in the city of Ramsey, so I'll be trying to get to know these candidates myself. So with that, let's start moving through. Oh, let's start with a Pledge of Allegiance. Sometimes look for a young person who want to lead it. And then we're flag eagle right here. So all stand. Okay. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. All right, let's keep going. Let's get started up here. Okay, these are the rules. I'll make sure that I'm following you. If you notice that I'm not following them, feel free to give me just a look. They may have to sometimes keep me out there too. Again, we are only answering questions. We are not, this is about the issues, not each other tonight. Time limits, you get 2 minutes to start. Questions, 1.5 minutes, 90 seconds. And then closing remarks, 1 minute. And the most important person in the room, can we hear for our timekeeper? Right here. I'll be watching right there for that timekeeper. And one of the ways, if somebody does not stop, I usually like to, we don't have music like they do at the Academy Awards, but we can simply, I may ask you to clap. I may ask you something, it will help to give them a graceful exit. However, if I'm not mistaken, this team is actually pretty solid about sticking to the time on that. Okay, everybody's getting the same questions, right? We're just going to keep going, same questions. Attacking opponents, you'll forfeit your time. I think I get to help call that on there too. We'll have a moment of silence to start from one of our good friends. Then we'll go through introductions. We have questions on these categories. They'll also be up on the screen for you too, I think, which is really nice. So you can keep track of what the question is. And then we'll have a chance to take off and maybe have a little more chatter, a little more camaraderie after that. So let's take a look. I don't know if you all knew, for those of you who knew Sean Worley, really one of the wonderful volunteers out here. He lost a battle with liver cancer on July 19th. And you'll see up there, if you want to go in August 2nd, there'll be his celebration of life. And again, this is the kind of person who came out and just did the good stuff, did the regular stuff, did, move the chairs, do all the things that make things actually work. And so let's all take a moment of silence to remember Sean. Thank you, appreciate that. All right, a little special thanks again to Senate District 29. And hey, you know what? If you were thinking to yourself, wow, I was wondering how I could donate, because I know that's why you're here. And I'm sure many of you, I don't know if you're like me, you're not getting any texts from anybody else asking you for money. I actually got to stand next to Governor Tim Walz at an event recently where he got a text from himself. Oh man, I said, you gotta hit stop on those like right away. But again, it makes a huge difference. As somebody who won by 0.32%, because I don't get greedy, I'll tell you, everything that happens in these local races doesn't just help the people in this area, it helps everybody up and down the ticket. So anything that you can support, this is one of the best, most concrete ways to make sure you're helping people get the word out. With that. So and by the way, that'll stay up. You'll have a chance to donate. There's the QR codes back there. If you have any trouble, we will find a way to help you do it. All right. So with that, let's get. This is how I plan to do this, and so you may have to catch me if I get my order off. Each time we'll start and go from your left to your right in this direction. First we'll start here. The next question we'll start here, and we'll just keep starting in a different spot each time, and ideally until I forget where I am, and then we'll help you with that as we go. And so with that, I think we are set to go. Any questions from anything? Did I miss anything? Anybody?
Please be sure to speak into the microphone as closely as you can.
Oh, you're not hearing it? Okay,
Oh,
great.
much better.
Oh, definitely.
Because we have a lot of people in the room, so it's hard to hear if you're not eating the microphone.
Oh, I have the same thing, you know, the rock and roll lifestyle that you expect from an auditor. You know, my hearing can get a little glitchy too. And so thank you, Les. We're gonna, and you know what, if you're, especially those of you in the back or even the front, if you just do this a little bit, that'll be a good signal to us that we have to get into our microphones more. I appreciate that, thank you. All right, so with that, we are just gonna start. I'll have you say your names, introduce yourselves, so they can hear your name from you first. And with that, let's do 2-minute introductions, and let's start with Bill.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Right. First of all, let me tell you how happy I am to be here in Buffalo with all of you. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for being here and listening to us all. And I'm especially happy to be here in the American Legion. My name is Bill Bradley. I'm considering a run, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself here tonight. I'm recently returned from the Foreign Service. So I've recently been released from the Foreign Service, and I came to Minnesota through my mother, actually. My mother came to Minnesota when I went to Montana for school. After a career of serving our country, I've come back, and I've been a Peace Corps volunteer, been a Fulbright scholar, and I've most recently been working in agriculture as an agricultural development officer, and with the United States Agency for International Development. I come from serving on the peaceful side of U.S. foreign policy, building relationships with allies, and through collaboration and working together with these countries. And so I'm uniquely qualified to be working and to work for you here in the 6th Congressional District, and I'm absolutely honored to be here working with you. I have 10 seconds left, and I'm going to leave it at that, and we'll get into the issues. And I just want to say how proud I am to be with this group of people here and working with you. So I look forward to tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. You know what? We're going to do applause after the introduction, then we'll stop. Let's hear it for Bill.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Doug Chapin, and as of July 1st, I am a candidate for Congress in Minnesota's 6th District. I'm running because our government is broken, and it's broken because Congress is broken. Right now, even though we pay attention to what's coming out of the White House, the reality is that every law, every executive order, every warrantless arrest, every White House ballroom doesn't move forward unless Congress, the Republican majority in Congress, helps it happen or allows it to happen. and I want to change that. I believe I have both the know-how and the experience to do just that. I spent 9 years studying government, politics, and the law, and I've spent more than 35 years in and around public service, including as a congressional attorney, fighting to make our government, our elections, and our democracy work for everyone, and not just the privileged few. When I get to Congress, I'm going to live every day the words of the late Paul Wellstone, that we all do better when we all do better. And in Congress, I want to build an America that's not just great, but that's better than great. An America that values work and the people who do it, whether they work on a farm, work with their hands, or work at a desk. I want them to be able to earn a living that allows them to thrive and not just survive. I want to make an America that's better than great because we recognize that we all need to look out for each other, that we need to fully fund things like Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security and SNAP. And we need to understand that those are not handouts, but promises that we have made to one another. And there's certainly not a pile of money to be looted for tax breaks for billionaires or corporations who already get more than their fair share. And finally, I want an America that's better than great because it's an ally people can count on, an ally for freedom, for justice and compassion around the world, an ally that stands against dictators, fascists, and thugs and doesn't cozy up to them either abroad or here at home. I ask for your support tonight. I look forward to discussing the issues tonight, and I will pass it on to Sierra.
Thank you. Let's hear it from
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me and us. We have options. If you know me, hi. And if you don't know me, my name is Sierra Grandy and I am running for Congress. I have formally announced and I've done the FEC paperwork and I am pumped. I figure, why not me? My generation needs to be stepping up and taking responsibility. My entire life, the systems have been broken and we can do better. I am a public speaker, an advocate, an attorney. I'm a small business owner. I've experienced writing legislative recommendations. I've chaired councils and committees. I've been a mediator, a mental health support group facilitator. But most of all, I'm just sick of what's happening right now. I'm fed up and we need to do something about it. My work revolves around my lived experience, which has been bolstered by my educational and professional experiences. I believe that nothing about us without us in my core, and that ends up revolving around the disability community. I'm openly neurodivergent and disabled. And I was building my dream job, still am, but every time I go out and do these public speaking events, I see the people in my community are filled with terror and defeat, and it's heartbreaking. I believe that the government can do things that benefit the everyday American. But why aren't they? Why isn't Tom Emmer actually taking action to help all of us instead of just corporations? My goal is simple, to increase access to healthcare, increase access to the American dream, and to a safer and more affordable CD6. And we can do something about it. And I know I cannot do this alone, but with a grassroots and campaign that puts well-being first, we can flip the district. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, let's hear from, let everybody say their own name. I don't know, I think I got this. We can just do that first.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? No. Oh, no, okay. Closer, how about now? No, still not. How about now? Okay, I'll talk really loud into it. Okay, I'm Jeanne Hendricks. I see a lot of familiar faces out here. I ran in the 22 and 24 election cycles here in CD6. So yeah, great to see all of you here. This is very exciting. Thanks for coming. I'm going to give you 3 names here, and then I'll tell you why they're all important. Dan Wolgamott, Eric Putnam, and the late Melissa Hortman. And the reason I'm saying all these 3 names is these 3 individuals all had to run 3 times to obtain the office that they were seeking. And thank God that they did, because they have contributed countless hours, countless policies. They've helped Minnesotans beyond measure So let's just clap for them. Eric's right over there. Yes, so great contributions from you guys. I admire their grit and their heart and their tenacity. And I want to say, I've been kind of examining my motives here for doing this, and that my heart is really in service to this district. And my heart is in service to the state and to the country, especially with all of the terrible things that are going on now with this administration. So, we've built over the last 2 election cycles, we've put a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money into this. And I would like to see us build on that together, continue to build on that. Can you hear me still, or am I too soft? Okay, I'll try to talk louder. I'm so energized and excited to see the interest here today running for this seat. As a district, we are far ahead of where we were in 24. I think I had one opponent in 24, and we didn't declare until February. So here we are in July with all of this interest, and that is a great testament to our executive committee. So thank you guys so much for getting this event going and getting all of us here. Awesome. Woo!
All right, hello everyone. I'm a loud talker, so I think hopefully you can all hear me. Hi everyone, my name is Jackson Miller. I'm running for CD6 as well to take on Tom Emmer. I'm Minnesota born and raised. Currently live in Lino Lakes with my wife. We've been there for a few years now. I've always been interested in politics, and in 2016, like many of us, the world kind of seemed to turn upside down. And I think a lot of people in this district feel invisible. Don't feel like they're being heard, or at worst case, don't feel like they're being represented by Tom Emmer, who's in there. And so that's the reason that I'm running. Currently, I work as a biomedical engineer at a major medical technical company, and I work on things like pacemakers and medical devices. And so my job is to find the problem, try to solve it. And every time that I'm presented with an issue, the first thing, and really the only thing that I think about, is how does this impact the patient? How my decisions are going to impact someone that I've never met before. Am I willing to make this decision and put this pacemaker in someone? Would I put in my own family? You know, a family member, or even myself? And so those are the same kind of decisions and mentality that I want to bring to Congress when I'm in there. My slogan that I'm running under is "We the People." It's the first 3 words of the Constitution, and I feel that this is the power and the responsibility of a member of Congress, is to represent the people that brought you there. The people in this district, whether or not they voted for you or against you, you are still there to represent everyone, making sure that they are getting their voices heard and feeling that they are represented in this situation. So I'm going to be running under a few things. One, making sure that we have a hands-off government, staying away from your Medicare, Medicaid, making sure that we put protections, not regulations, to stop you. Government should be out of your daily life. Fighting for pocketbook issues, and then also making sure that I'm working together with common sense. That's the thing that we need here in Congress, and what I plan to bring. Thank you.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Chad Threadgill. About me, I did 8 years in the military. In 2014, I served in Afghanistan. 18, I went to Syria. I was part of the pullout. I saw what happened to the Kurds, so I went to Iraq in 2019. After that, I decided to get out of the military. I saw what Trump did, and I was like, nope, done. Hands off. Went to school for 2 years. I went and studied electronic engineering down there at Anoka Tech. I'm actually from this area, from Ramsey. Went to Anoka High School. After that, went and worked up in Douglas Machines for about a year. I was making $25 an hour. People will tell me, like, wow, that's good money. Not. Yep. Everybody's giggling. I had to find that out. So I left. Oh, can I get a pause? Legitimate pause. But yeah. After that, I left. I went to Ukraine in August, last August in 2024. By the time November came around, I remember sitting there just watching the elections. I was back home. I was back at my house from rotation from the front. Saw the election, and I went out. Went back out and did my rotation where I was wounded. I ended up getting wounded by a Ka-52 attack helicopter back in November, and I would come home in April, just this April, walk off that plane, and I walked immediately into CD6 headquarters in St. Cloud. I was like, yep, put me in, coach. I'm here to fight Tom Emmer. I got a big problem with him and Donald J. Trump.
And as we get our text together, I appreciate that. Go for it.
Hi guys, my name is Austin Winkelman. You might remember me from last year. I ran in the primary against Jeanne. So this year I'm coming back with a new message. I want to wage war on wealth. What does waging war on wealth mean? It means basically what I want to do is use post-World War II tax bracket scheming and tax the hell out of the rich. We're talking 90% top, on the top percentage. Beyond that, I was born in Monticello. I grew up all over the district, from Delano to St. Cloud, So yeah, that's really about all I got for you guys. Yeah, thank you.
For those of us who've lived here, I've lived in this district for most of my life. I'm feeling a lot of hope right now. Anybody else? Let's hear it. And now we get the part where they solve all the problems in the world in 90 seconds. So let's start. Okay, this time we'll start here. Our first question is in the category of farming and agriculture. And so we all know that climate change and rising costs are creating an unfair advantage for large agribusinesses while bringing family farms to the brink. How will you support sustainable family-run farms? We'll start this time with Doug Chapin.
Thank you very much. I think the thing to recognize at the beginning is that farms, all farms, but especially family farms, are small businesses. And like any small business, they face some challenges that we need to make sure we look out for. We need to make sure that they have access to predictable and reliable markets, not that are roiled by tariffs. We need them to have access to health care and other items that allow their families and their workers to access the health care they need. And we need to make sure that they are able to conduct their operations without the threat of raids which take away their employees on a daily or weekly basis. But let me talk about some things that maybe you might not have otherwise focused on. First of all, there's a movement in this country right now on something called right to repair. Many farmers have machinery that belong to companies like John Deere, and when it breaks, they can't fix it themselves. They have to take it to the dealer, and very often that takes it out of commission, costs them lots of money, and then costs them money and time on the back end at harvest. In Congress, I would defend the right of farms of all sizes, but especially small farms, to repair their machinery. The other thing to keep an eye on is the issue of agritourism. The state of Oregon is promulgating a rule that would stop family farms from being able to do things like pick your own or hay rides or what have you, which will put many of those small farms literally on the brink. In Congress, I will fight to promote agritourism and resist any effort to restrict it. Thank you.
We have a lot of questions and a lot of really good people. So I'm going to ask you to do something non-Minnesotan. We're going to stop. If we can not clap, you can give books. So we're going to clap, and I think we'll just keep passing that mic, and you don't have to wait for me, and we'll just roll. All right, let's see how much we can solve tonight. All right, we'll get back to you, Sarah.
Awesome, thank you. Family farms are a cornerstone of this district, and we need to do something about the just the sheer amount of things that are happening to them. There's rising costs for materials, uncertain economic situations, there's extreme weather for climate change, there's mental health and physical health struggles that are unique to farmers and rural communities. And there's a lot of policies that favor very large monopoly businesses. I want to help them out, obviously. We can do that by increasing access to policies that level the playing field and invest in them. Redirect subsidies and resources to sustainable family-run farms, expand access to low-interest loans, climate-smart tools, and fair pricing protections. I will also push to break up monopolies. It's long overdue. And invest in local food systems that connects farmers directly to opportunities close by. If we don't act soon, we are at risk of losing even more of the family farms in our district. So supporting them means a stronger rural economy, spreading agricultural knowledge, healthier food, and protecting the land we pass on to next generations. As I will continue to say, I believe in policies that defend and increase access. Here that means to fair markets, sustainable practices, better health care, and resources farmers need to thrive. Thank you.
Okay, good job.
Okay, Jeanne Hendricks, here we go. The Minnesota State Legislature did a marvelous job of passing a bill that really benefits small family farms here in Minnesota. This bill provides down payment assistance to purchase land. It provides grants for infrastructure grants for equipment and infrastructure, and then tax credits and incentives for beginning farmers and monies for conservation practices. So kudos to the state legislature for doing that. I support all of the things they did. One of the big things I think that needs to change is the federal subsidy program, because it's benefiting a small percentage of the wealthiest farmers. From 95 to 21, 10% of the wealthiest, largest farms receive 2/3 of the federal subsidy. So that needs to be spread out and spread down to the smaller farms. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do it through means testing, find out who needs what and who makes what, and then we're going to do it through payment limits, make the payments smaller so we can spread them out further, and then we're going to do it through targeted support to smaller farms so they can apply and say, hey, I have this need. So I think that that's a place we can really help the smaller farms is by redoing the federal subsidy system. Yeah, thank you.
Here in CD6, being a farmer isn't just an occupation, it's a way of life. These are things that are family farms that are handed down generation after generation. And so what we need to do is we need to be able to help them, especially through climate change. There's a report that just came out that said this year is the hottest year on record that we've ever had. So climate change is here, and we need to help our farmers work their way through it. So part of that is to work on climate resilience with them, making sure that they have a seat at the table and that we're investing in with them as well. So they're doing things for regenerative agriculture like crop rotation, rotational grazing, and carbon smart practices. We should be rewarding that behavior versus penalizing them if it goes over. Second thing we need to do is we need to focus on the farm monopolies. We're not just talking necessarily the large farms that you're thinking of, but we're talking about people who sell the seed and are keeping the prices high on that. We're talking about slaughterhouses that are raising the fees in order for them to slaughter their cows and then sell it. So these farmers are getting squeezed out of their hard-earned dollars, and they got to sell more and work harder just to be able to keep up. And the third thing that we have to do is rural entrepreneurship. So these farmers, we need to invest in local communities and making sure that we can have things like farmers markets, working on things in their rural communities with community leaders to help them be able to sell their goods and work together so that when rural farms succeed, rural communities also succeed as well. Because this isn't just about crops and cattle, it's about way of their life, of protecting their life and keeping local farms and local families for generations.
Thank you. I supported all the, general subsidies, like crop insurance, like all that stuff is just very bland and basic. Everybody supports it. We all need like crop insurance. It's the food that we eat. So one of the big ways I plan on helping family farms is sitting there and understanding like the position like I am in. So if you are a congressman, and you are not in the majority of party. You have to look at what the majority party's offering. Right now, we have one of the largest increase in military spending, which means we need to feed those troops. So one thing I'm going to be working on is getting family co-ops, where family farms come together, making sure they can get the support that they need and getting them that competitive edge and advantage with those federal contracts, with the DOD, the DFAC system, all those MREs. There's a lot of cheddar out there that Trump is throwing out there, and we need to get that already here. It should be already coming here, but we need people to go out there and get it and actually have the skills and expertise to go and play the game and play the field of politics.
So last year when I was preparing for Farm Fest, I was reading through like loan programs and stuff, and I found one simple provision that was in there that restricted a farmer's access to the loan program just based on how long or how much post-secondary education they have. So that would mean a kid that grows up on a farm can't actually, just buy his dad's farm using USDA loans. He would have to go to post-secondary school and eat up cash and time, and I think if we just remove that provision, we would be able to free up a lot of cash and capital for farmers to use. As well, I've been working on a Farm Modernization Act to just basically say we have a regulation that we want to enact. We would basically help pay for a portion of that for farmers to, basically make a bigger dairy area for their cows, or, stuff like that. Whatever improvements are needed for the farm itself. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so the challenge here is how do we enable a 300-acre operation compete with a 3,000-acre operation and be competitive on the market and find their niche so that they're able to build out their livelihood in the face of that kind of competition. And so what we need to do is, as a congressperson, bring back the grant programs that have been cut by this Congress for USDA to incentivize regenerative agriculture, to build up organic matter in the soil, to be able to really be able to increase the competitiveness of a smaller operation with a larger operation by incentivizing sustainable practices. In addition to that, there also needs to be a way for those producers to be able to have safety nets in case some crisis happens and they're able to get reimbursed to be able to become more resilient in the future and to compete with those large farmers. And that includes being able to link those smaller producers in Minnesota with local markets and school feeding programs that were done and were eviscerated by DOGE. That needs to be corrected, and supporting our local growers here in the 6th District and the smaller growers. In fact, and as was mentioned here earlier, the different creative approaches for innovation, for pick your own and that kind of thing.
You know what? I think to reward them, one, for sticking to time, and two, for those incredible answers. Let's see. All right, in this one, we will start with Sierra Grandy, first on this one. So, as we know, debates continue across the country around water rights, pollution, land use. Residents are increasingly concerned about preserving the long-term viability of farming and protecting our soil and water resources. So here's your question. What is your plan to support environmental conservation in CD6 while also helping farmers adapt and thrive in a changing climate? And we'll start with Sierra.
Before I start, I do want to point out the people, but before I start, Before I start, I just want to mention that. Before I start, I want to mention that this is another farming and agriculture one, so if we're going to do that, are we cutting out one of the other topics? I can answer this, I didn't necessarily.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Our goal is to not. I think that if we just keep it rolling, I'll bet you we can get them all. I feel lucky. Let's do this.
Okay.
What's that? Oh, you mean this one that you guys expected? Oh, let me go back. You know, what's going to be fun for this team is that I might be mixing up the order, I think.
I thought we were only doing one per, so that's where that was from. Let's go. Two per. Okay, cool.
You get the extra stuff there just for this crowd because they're so good.
Well, let's not rely on my notebook anymore and let's just go for this. Okay, thank you all. I was confused. That's on me. What's my plan to support environmental conservation and CD6? Invest in it. We need to invest in climate smart moves. That is something that is currently being stripped away by the current administration as if everything that has been put in place means nothing. We know how important it is to make sure that there are renewable energies, different taxes on companies that have certain amounts of emissions happening. Words are eluding me apparently. And then also we need to just validate farmers who are dealing with all of this. This is already here. Climate change is already here. We have to acknowledge that and continue to move forward by providing them also health care. We need to provide lower costs. We need to provide tax incentives. We need to, basically my entire answer previously. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, here we go. Plan to support environmental conservation in CD6. You know, I support the federal and state conservation programs. Both of them provide payouts to farmers for doing crop rotation, for planting cover crops, for doing rotational grazing, and for planting around fields to prevent erosion of the soil. So the farmers get payouts for doing all of this in the programs. And I support all of that. I think we need to continue to support the funds that support that. Also, the federal and state insurance programs provide protections for livestock and crop damage due to heat and drought. And so I support that as well, and that's very important with climate change. CD6 residents and all of us should be very concerned about climate, very concerned, especially when Trump has climate deniers running the EPA. I believe now they're currently looking at revoking pollution limits, and when it comes to farmers. They are also looking to rescind the bedrock ruling from 2009 that states that human-caused climate change endangers health and safety. So they're just trying to rewrite the whole thing and say climate isn't a thing, right? When it really, really is. Thank you.
Similar to what I had said earlier, farmers, they're on the front line of the environment and what we're dealing with, and they see climate change every day, from changing weathers, from flash floods and crazy windstorms and everything that we've been seeing here, and 100 degrees all the way down to 70 degrees today. You know, they're partners in this thing. So the first thing that I talked about last time is making sure that we reward them for being involved in good programs. So making sure that there's, first of all, funding that's there, and to get rid of the red tape. Kind of as I mentioned, a hands-off government is we need to get rid of this red tape. We need to make sure that if they want to be a partner with us and be part of the solution, let's bring them in. Let's allow them to do that, because I know farmers are stewards of the land. They want this land to be fertile. They want to use it because this is their livelihood. So let's help them to do that. Second thing is clean water in particular. We are all part of that. You know, farmers need to work with us in local conservation. So we work with local districts to see what we can do with our water resources and tie in farmers to be part of that solution. They're not the problem. They should have a seat at that table. And then the third thing is we need to introduce rural resilience, basically just trying to modernize our infrastructure, making sure that we have funding that's there, making sure that our cities can be ahead of this so that when we have excess water, that we can take care of it, and when we have droughts, we can also take care of that as well. You know, our CD6 families, they deserve clean water. The farms deserve clean water, so let's all work together to try and drive towards that solution, because that's a future that I think we need to involve moving forward with all the climate change. Thank you.
So one thing, like when it comes towards like climate change, yeah, like everybody here, like acknowledges it's going to happen. It is going to happen, and like at this point, we're almost at that point where it's about controlling the rate. That's almost at that point. So one thing that I'm going to try to work with farmers on, and just about everybody, is like we have to work on climate change. So farmers, they do a lot of like spraying of their crops, and they use a lot of gas. And one thing that I'm also going to work on is, guess what? Drones. We already have DJI drones, but that's the thing. They're like the Chinese kind. Donald Trump, unfortunately, there's a lot of chatter in the military. If we are able to work together and take those military-grade drones and be able to help our farmers, subsidize them, help them get rid of the Chinese ones that are cheap, that are actually really, really good and are on the cutting edge of technology, we can help our farmers in that sense, in like reducing their own carbon footprints by getting them to use drones, because guess what? They're all battery operated. You can use renewable energy with them. And then secondly is also investing in agricultural science, especially when it comes towards like having different business, like having more competition in the seed business. Thank you.
So let's see, climate change. I'm a big dreamer. I have a lot of big ideas and big thoughts, and one of my big ideas and big dreams is advancing underground farming to a point where smaller farms can manage it. Basically, it would double your yield and output. So, and then we could also use an enclosed water system so that the farm itself wouldn't be using as much water. It would just be circulating and with nutrients and whatnot. So it would be basically a hydroponic system. Let's see. And then as far as like, I totally just lost my train of thought. I terribly apologize, you guys. Yeah, I'll probably think about it afterwards, so I apologize. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go straight into Congress must reassert its authority to articulate a better tariff policy that combats the rising cost of agricultural inputs. It's a serious thing in fuel and fertilizer that is really impacting our producers here in Minnesota. And then twinning that with investing and incentivizing climate-smart agricultural technology, like I mentioned earlier, regenerative agriculture. So increasing the organic matter in the soil, rebuilding the soil health to be able to practice, to be able to help soil fertility and increase the resilience of our smaller farmers to be competitive with the larger operations. It's indispensable to do that and it's necessary for the federal government to focus on that and to support the growers to do that. And the climate change, that will help our growers be resilient to climate change and cope with potential economic losses by increasing their yields during those times of drought that are going to become more common with climate change. And incidentally, today we're seeing the impact of climate change coming down with all the wildfire smoke from Canada. So these things are transnational and they're highly important, and we need to have a Congress needs to reassert its authority to be able to help our growers be more performing on the global market.
Thank you, Bill. It's always nice to sit next to an agricultural expert, then I can just kind of clean it up. I think one of the important things to recognize is that sustainable agriculture and sustainable techniques are not things that are being foisted on farmers. They're already using them. The USDA Agricultural Census in 2022 found that something like 1 in 10 farms were already using no-till. Another 1 in 10 were using cover crops. and almost 2 in 10 were using reduced till. Farmers recognize that this is important to them. It's not just something that somebody's making them do, it's something that's good for them in the long run. And we need to find a way to support them with both funding and research on what works best for them. Unfortunately, the current Congress is not doing that. Don't know if anyone has been following the story of this new reorganization at the Department of Agriculture. That's basically a reorganization that's hiding more massive layoffs like we've seen at every other federal agency. So were I in Congress right now, I would be screaming bloody murder about that reorganization and doing what we could to fully fund the Department of Agriculture. And while we're talking about fully funding, I'm just going to throw my nerd hat on. There's something called the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program. It's been authorized at $60 million for something like 2 decades. And the current budget has it appropriated 40 in the House and 48 in the Senate. If I were in Congress, I would advocate for not only fully funding that 60, but finding a way to increase that authorization into the future. Thank you.
All right, let's hear it for this next. And also want to think about if there's any timing issues that you're going to see. Those of you who are running the place, feel free to come here and hand me a note if you have to do something else. But let's go on to our next question. Let's go into the Second Amendment. So this is a real simple one to start with. How will you protect both the Second Amendment rights and let me try that one more time. How will you protect both Second Amendment rights and the safety of CD6 residents, especially children and vulnerable populations? We'll start with Jeanne Hendricks on this.
Okay, here we go. Republicans love this question because they think you can only have the Second Amendment or have the Second Amendment or have gun safety. You can't have both, and that's a false choice. It's not true. We can have both. And the things that we can do are we can outlaw bump stocks, we can outlaw high-capacity magazines, we can outlaw automatic and semi-automatic weapons, we can require background checks for private gun sales. There's so much that we can do to provide for gun safety, all right, in addition to protecting the Second Amendment. One other thing that I want to, again, kudos to the state legislature, is this last year they just enforced a new safe storage law in Minnesota. It passed and it's law now, and it's going to help protect our children and possibly save a lot of lives going forward. One other thought I wanted to leave with you, I wanted to slow down a bit, and I wanted to just share with you that there have been 540 school shootings in the U.S. since the year 2000. And I want us just to think about that for a minute. How many of those shootings or those deaths might have been prevented by safe storage laws? We owe it to our children and ourselves to stand up to the NRA and finally pass responsible safe gun safety laws.
All right, like many of you, or maybe some of you, I grew up, with guns. My grandpa would go pheasant hunting. I married into a family where they own a lot of guns. They're things for hunting, for sport shooting, for family traditions where firearms, have a respected and valued thing in their family. But I also believe that we need to do that with responsibility. So I support the Second Amendment, but I also support the rights and the responsibilities that come with that. As Jeannie said, we need to make sure to keep the safety and the gun ownership in the same thing, because that's what families are asking for. Families want to be safe in our schools. When we go out to the grocery store or in our places of worship, that's what we're hoping for and expecting. So the things that I want to focus on are expanding background checks, making sure that violent criminals and domestic abusers find it harder and can't get through loopholes to possess firearms. Supporting red flag laws. So what that means is if a family member thinks that another family member could harm themselves or someone else, that they can get the police to come in and help confiscate guns for a little while. I have a stat here that 76% of people, Democrats and Republicans, support that. Why can't we get that through? And then the other thing is making sure that we're investing in mental health services. Anytime there's a mass shooting, Republicans always jump to, well, it's mental health, it's mental health. I agree. Let's do something to fund it, to support this. Let's make sure that we actually address this issue versus hoping that this thing passes and we get another school shooting and then focus on that one. So this shouldn't be a partisan issue. It's about protecting our freedoms and our lives, and I think we can do both of those at the same time. Thank you.
Wow, the Second Amendment. All right. So, I didn't grow up with guns in my household. I'm the only person in my home who owns guns. And what I mean by that is I leave my guns at my parents' house, and they don't even want them there because I live in an apartment building. Because I'm a responsible gun owner. I don't need my guns because I live in an apartment. So, here's the problem. We got a lot of problem with the trying to get like Republicans and like everybody on pace with the Second Amendment. And like a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's about the safety and security. Well, how do you prevent the government from coming to your house and kidnapping you and your family? And like everybody's like, oh, well, Trump is Hitler. So like one of the big things, like I'm totally fine with gun laws and supporting, gun registration. And however, I'm not okay with like a complete assault weapons ban. I'm sorry to say it, but if you served in the military, this is another military thing. If you served in the military, if you want to own an AR and keep it, yeah, you should be. You're a trusted individual. And that way, when all those Second Amendment supporters get upset and they're like, well, what about the safety and security of the country? Well, guess what? You could just go grab 8 veterans with guns, and there you go, there's your militia. I know it doesn't sound great, but it technically is correct. Thank you.
Let's see. I'm for expanding Minnesota's red flag laws nationally. I just think that's a good idea. I think we do have to make sure we respect everybody's due process, because as we're all learning with Trump, due process is an extremely important thing, even when it comes to guns, as unfortunate as it sounds. As much as we all want to do something, I believe we can do things around the edges, like introduce new definitions for firearms. So like there's an actual definition for a rifle, as it functions, rather than a width of a barrel or the size of a stock. I think that's really about all I got for this one.
Okay, so what we need to do as Democratic candidates in this district is to not allow this to become a wedge issue. We need to enforce gun laws that are on the books. We need to focus on gun safety. We need to educate about gun safety. We need to be sure that we're helping people keep each other safe through supporting each other's safety with guns. And people who shouldn't have guns shouldn't have guns. So we need to there needs to be ways to make sure that people who really are not going to be responsible with firearm, that firearm doesn't get in their hands. The United States has a gun culture. From John Wayne, other countries have gun cultures. Afghanistan, interesting gun culture. They're all over. AK-47s are all over in every household in Afghanistan. And in Montana, driving down the road, every car has a handgun in the glove box. And so we need to be able to manage that culture as a community and be able to drive a culture of responsibility where people, if they see something, they say something, and they keep each other accountable so that those firearms don't get in the wrong hands for people to commit crimes like we've seen in this area here. And it's just it's laudable that the law enforcement was able to be proactive and
I'm sorry, the first time I got to cut somebody off as a middle school teacher, I've been practicing this like all day.
I'm just glad she didn't throw an eraser. So the question asks about children and vulnerable populations, and I want to focus on that. One thing, Jackson talked about farming being a way of life in Minnesota. obviously, hunting and firearms in many ways is a way of life here in Minnesota, and we have to recognize and appreciate that. It may surprise you to learn, however, that in terms of gun ownership, Minnesota is nowhere near the top nationally. Only 42.8% of Minnesota households are reported to have a gun of any kind. And I think Minnesota can be a model for the rest of the nation. We are associated with hunting and firearms, and yet we also have very strong laws. Say storage practices, something called child access programs that hold gun owners liable if something happens with a gun that they own. We need to recognize that the Second Amendment is just like any other amendment. It is not absolute. The First Amendment is not absolute. You cannot shout fire in a crowded firehouse. The Fourth Amendment is not absolute. There are exceptions and there are limits on every amendment in our Constitution. And we can work together to find exceptions and limits that protect the people who most need protecting while still protecting the way of life that hunting and firearms are in the great state of Minnesota. Thank you.
On the back of my driver's license, next to my snowmobile safety, I have my firearm safety certificate. That's a thing. I grew up in Malacca, and that was just something you did during high school years. You go and you learn how to properly handle a rifle. I learned I shoot left-handed. Not a huge fan of guns, they're a bit too loud, but I'm glad I had that. I'm so glad I had that. We're in Minnesota, especially rural Minnesota, and there are a lot of lawful gun owners, hunting, protection, sports shooting. So things that I support, universal background checks, access to affordable general firearm safety, safe storage education, and a possible tax credit for safe storage, and mental health investments across the board. And I would like to mention here, though, that those with disabilities are more likely to be victims than perpetrators. That ends up being something that I really want to highlight. I'm also not for complete outlaw of things. Prohibitions hardly ever work. And there are things like 3D printed guns and homemade guns that we need to be aware of and actually start legislating around. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's hear it. All right, let's take a look at our next question. We're just going to keep rolling. Okay, so I'll look at that. And you know, again, if you feel like you've already answered a question, you don't have to use your whole time if you don't want to. Again, as someone who's been in politics now I've been elected for 7 years, I use every single second. But let's take a look at another one on the Second Amendment. How would you support responsible gun ownership while ensuring that safety measures like red flag laws and safe storage practices help prevent tragedies in our communities? And Jackson Miller will be starting this one.
All right, so as I stated before, we can and we must support responsible gun ownership while at the meanwhile taking steps to keep our communities safe. Those are not conflicting issues. Those issues need to go hand in hand. I grew up in school where we had to run code blue drills, where basically it's now commonplace. When I was growing up, we didn't really know what this was when we had to do the first one, but basically the teacher locks the door and you pretend like a shooter's coming through and you turn off the lights and then you're quiet for a little while that's happening. That's the environment that we live in nowadays, that our kids are going through. And so what we need to be able to do is make sure that these red flag laws that we had mentioned, storage practices, which again I stated a fact, 80% of people support safe storages. Family members that I've talked to, gun owners that I talk to, says, yeah, if you have a gun, you should be storing it the right way. My father-in-law has a safe, and my wife and none of the kids know the combination. He's the only one who knows that combination. And he's like, yeah, every gun owner should have that. So let's make sure that we're working with gun owners in a way to tell them, hey, we're not here to take your guns, but we're here to work with you and be a responsible gun owner. Things like gun safety, making sure that people aren't afraid to take it, people that understand what this is about and to encourage things like that, especially in CD6. And I think the last thing is making making sure that safe storage can help that children can't access firearms. There's nothing worse than watching the news and hearing a story about a young child getting into their father's safe and getting a gun. So we need to make sure that we take care of children with that.
Yep. It's the Second Amendment, like always. So, safe storage laws. I really don't know what to tell you people. I'm just gonna put it to you like this. Guns, they are the current issue. In the future, there's going to be bigger issues than guns. Crazy enough. It's going to get, we have the potential for like a lot worse things. So one of the best ways to deal with like all this safe gun storage and stuff, like yeah, like we keep passing all these laws, but nothing's ever happening. Part of it is we're not holding the parents accountable. Start making it a felony. If your child goes into your room and takes your gun or gets into the safe and shoots somebody, that parent is going to get slapped with a felony. And it will get a lot of people to start thinking really hard. We got to crack down on the parents. I'm sorry to people, but sitting there trying to rip everybody's rights away and liberties because you're a crappy parent, and now we need Big Brother, that thing everybody hates. They're like, oh, whoa, we got Big Brother. We got to punish the parents. We really do. It's the kids that are not all right. It's the kids who keep causing problems. Other than that, like a vast majority of the bigger problems, like gangs and like random acts of violence, that stuff, it's secondary. Darn it. That cut off.
So let's see. Since everybody's in, all right, start over. Last night I was on a call with Moms Demand Action. I'm going to be doing some of their training and whatnot. And one of the interesting statistics I heard is at a Twins game, there's 15 guns stolen every time. And one of the things I want to do as a vehicle to expand red flag laws and red flag laws is use the conceal and carry, the Minnesota model we have here. Right now I believe it's just a regional thing, but if we were to expand it out to a national, we could use it to, we could incorporate safe storage laws and red flag laws into that law, so it's a give and take. And it would also increase police safety if we could have just a database so that if a cop walks up, they say, oh, this guy might have a gun on him, maybe I should take precautions, or they could, be relatively peace of mind. Thank you guys.
Yeah, I just want to continue from my last answer, which is if you see something, say something. And that's what I want to promote as a congressperson, is to create a culture where people help each other, not allow firearms get into people's hands who can hurt other people. And that's a community effort, a family level effort, and it's about education and safe storage practices that really begin at home and the safe use of firearms. And that's really the core, in my view, the core issue. The laws can be there, but it's that person-to-person education on how to use these tools safely, and to prevent children and people who shouldn't have them to have them.
Thank you, Bill. I think on the issue of guns, like just about every other issue in America, and especially here in the 6th District, I think what we really need to be doing, as simple as it sounds, is talking to one another and listening. Again, Minnesota has a well-deserved reputation for pretty responsible use of firearms. That's one reason why June 14th was so shocking. We don't have a reputation for being kind of a lawless gun culture here. I think what we can do is we can talk to gun owners across the district and find out what works for them and what doesn't, but then also talk about our shared interest in protecting children and those most vulnerable among us. No one wants a child to die by gunfire, either theirs or someone else's, especially if their gun is involved. So to the extent that we can get out there, rather than get into these bare knuckle brawls with the National Rifle Association, which is really more about making money than it is protecting gun owners, let's actually talk to gun owners in Minnesota and find out what works for them, and then take that model and bring it out to the nation as a whole. Finally, I do want to point out one thing that Minnesota has, that maybe this appeals to me more as a lawyer, is this child access protection. In Minnesota, if your gun is used, if someone could likely get access to your gun, even if it's not used or used to harm someone, you can still be liable. And so that's an incentive to make sure that your gun, if not locked, is securely stored. I believe we can take that model nationally in order to protect not just our children, but children from coast to coast. Thank you.
I support red flag laws and safe storage, as we talked about previously, and I also want to echo that we need to listen to responsible gun owners on this topic. Like those in our community who are hunters, veterans, currently in the military, the people who have shown that they are responsible. We also, going a little further, because this is like keeping our communities safe, we need to do things like increase school funding and like focus on policies that actually address the root cause of violence, not just guns. Like that's a tool, not the actual thing that's happening. So we need increased safe and stable housing so that people who have reasons to go out and cause violence might be able to actually just have a home. Untreated mental health issues need to be addressed, health issues need to be addressed, addiction, poverty, education. There's so many different things that we need to be addressing, and this is like a very important topic, right? Second Amendment is something that often is thrown at Democrats as if we're going to take the bait and fight against this. But we all believe in common sense things. Like it's a bipartisan issue. And so moving into how do we actually fund policies that will address the root cause of violence, that's where I think we actually need to be focusing.
Okay, I support mental health treatment and gun safety laws. I think they both go hand in hand. They're both part of the problem. It's not one or the other. I support the following, and the following are responsible gun safety laws. Red flag laws and safe storage laws are responsible gun safety laws. Requiring background checks and license transfer for private gun sale, that's a responsible gun safety law. Laws prohibiting the sale of ghost guns or parts of ghost guns without a serial number, that's a responsible gun safety law. Now, we have done a lot of work, our state legislature has done a lot of work here in Minnesota passing a lot of these laws, and we need to make all of them federal. So we really have our work cut out for us in Congress to take these laws that we've passed here and transfer them to the federal. One other thing I want to mention, mass shootings went down after the assault weapons ban that was passed when Ronald Reagan was shot. They've gone up since that law expired. And we need to once again ban assault weapons on a national level. They have no place in our society.
Again, let's thank all of our. Chad Threadgill will start this next question, and we are on justice and safety. Hey, again, still on the same fun happy topic though. It's connected to that because it's important. As gun violence and political tensions rise across the country, many residents are calling for effective and nonpartisan approaches to public safety. And your question is, what is your plan to improve safety in our communities aligned with evidence-based practices? And again, we'll start with Jeanne.
So a couple of things. First things first, one of the easiest ways to improve the safety of your community and to decrease crime is to focus on the economy. That's one of the big things everybody's also kind of got to understand. Crime has historically been going down, especially violent crime. So some of you need to understand statistics. If you go on FBI.gov right now, you can literally just go see the chart. and see the actual statistics of violent crime going down. And that's the thing. It's because our economy has been actually improving, and then COVID happened and now we have inflation. So literally taking on inflation is going to be one of like the big issues, and that's a separate issue in itself, but it bleeds into our like our justice system. It's like one of them, like you sick, and what's the cure? Sick, crime, cure, improving the economy, ensuring that everybody has opportunities. And one way that I'm also going to try to improve like the safety within like all of our communities is to work with officers and start working with states and try to restructure how policing is done here in America. We cannot nationalize our police force. That is in the Constitution by the 10th Amendment, states' rights. But what we can do is regulate how law enforcement is to act and behave.
So one of the biggest things I think we can do to improve public safety, and when this is kind of to do with the police, I want to increase training, not mandatory, but like a tiered training program. So if a police officer was to take X amount of training, say de-escalation, they could get a slight pay raise for it. And as they continue to evolve and grow, it will create a diverse network of skill sets within the police. I think this is one of the biggest things we can do to improve our safety in our communities, along with just doing basic things like my friend was talking about here, is, taking care of our lower income communities and whatnot. I think that will go the longest to continue the drop in violent crime. Yeah, I think that's about all I got for this one. Thank you.
The safety in our communities is an issue that is largely left to local government, cities, towns, counties, and state government. On the federal level, they provide support to these agencies to do that. The situation we're facing now is a general mistrust that we need to rebuild and find a way to build trust in our communities between the police and between the citizens, and that's a community and local level issue. How do we incentivize that? By demonstrating leadership, by speaking back to leaders who are toxic and unproductive in the way that they talk about others, and we need to find a way to, at a congressional level, and a federal level, and a leadership level, be very clear about hate and how hate has no place in our communities, and that we need to be standing up to those who create that kind of culture of hate. And so and working with authorities and police to do that is necessary, and that's how, from a congressional perspective, it's demonstrating that leadership and making sure that we stand up against that.
Thank you. At the risk of outing myself as a massive nerd, you had me at evidence-based. For those of you who don't know, evidence-based policing or public safety is exactly what it sounds like. You collect evidence on crimes, type of crime, location of crime, what have you, weapon involved, and you use that data to then analyze the proper response to the situation. So that's why you end up with things like targeted patrols or outreach to certain communities, or rather than just react to crime as it happens, use data to get a sense of what's needed in the community and how to address it. Unfortunately, we are currently once again in an environment where relying on evidence is not being well funded. There's something called burned JAG grants. which the federal government makes available to local police departments to help them do things like violence intervention or other evidence-based practices. Those are being cut in the current administration. When it comes to policing, just like anything else, I'm with Edward Deming. He used to say, "In God we trust, but everyone else bring evidence." When I'm in Congress, we will work to make sure that local police departments and other public safety agencies can collect the data they need, can analyze the data they need, and can use it to protect and defend their communities from coast to coast. Thank you.
We can invest in things like de-escalation. We know that that works. We know that programs in crisis response, that nonviolent crisis response and teaching our officers, we know that that works. Cultural competency, also we know that that works. We also know that supporting officer wellness programs, including mental health support for law enforcement providers and personnel when they're dealing with vicarious and secondary trauma, that can be helpful. We can teach people, spend more time on these de-escalation techniques than the weapons that they're using. So, in my job, I do crisis intervention trainings for police officers, and in my job, I do suicide prevention with police officers. And at those places, I've learned that the programs that they are undergoing are often optional, and they spend way more time with weapons and tasers than they do learning how to calm a situation. We need to invest in a co-responder model where social workers or mental health professionals accompany officers on appropriate calls. And we need to fund things fully like 988, because that does exist and is a great resource, but it needs to be funded federally. And we need to throw out interrogation techniques like the Reed technique, because it's proven to lead to many false confessions.
Okay, here we go, evidence-based practices. One that I think is very, very effective is involving police officers in the community at public events, parades, county fairs, and most importantly in the schools. I attended a drug prevention program in my daughter's grade school, and the police officer was there, and he came to every class that they had, and they were developing this idea that this guy is okay. He's here to protect us. It's a positive, right? So I think that they've had a lot of good results with involving police officers in the community and in the schools, and the children are developing a positive view of the police. So that has very good results. Another thing that Minnesota is doing is targeted prevention programs in the schools with teachers and counselors. And they're teaching these individuals to recognize behaviors that kids elicit that could lead to a worse outcome. So like say withdrawal, anger, lashing out, or whatever. And so they're teaching them so they can intervene more quickly before things get worse or before there's a violent act. And that's been known to be very, very effective in preventing violence in schools as well. So those are the two examples I have. Thank you.
In this time of gun violence and deepening political division, I think really what we want in this district is just to feel safe. We want to be able to go to our children to go to schools. We want to be able to go to grocery stores. We want to be able to go to our places of worship without having to worry that we're outside. And so a few of the things that I want to do to kind of help is we talk about evidence-based things. So we'll talk about community violence, making sure that the police are engaged with those kind of initiatives with local leaders, mental health crisis teams, making sure that trained professionals are engaged, and really making sure that we have partnerships between law enforcement and trusted local leaders. I think one of the things that I believe in is kind of a hands-off government, so we should be able to provide resources. We should be able to get rid of all the red tape and then let the local leaders work together with the local police officers. Because when communities lead, those are the solutions that last. Because if Congress tries to come in, make laws, make rules, make regulations, the next Congress or the next party is going to come in and get rid of all of those. But if we can enforce it at a local level, those processes, those solutions, those are the ones that are going to succeed. And the last thing that we have to do is rebuild trust, not only between the police and the community, but between our neighbors. My wife and I moved up here. She lived in Minneapolis basically for the last 6 years. She moved up here. She loves it in the suburbs. We have some of the greatest neighbors, and it's the people of this district that we love in here that are able to work together and accelerate this trust that we have, because safety should never be partisan. We should be able to work with our communities.
All right. Again, let's hear it for another great round. Just to let you know, we have one more question in this category, one more category, and then just a couple questions here, but I gotta say the last question will only take a second, and I'm very interested in hearing it, so you want to stay for the last one. All right, so with that, let's go into our next question. Law enforcement agencies across CD6 face staffing shortages, strained resources, and community mistrust. What do you perceive your role is in supporting law enforcement? And this, we will start with Austin Winkelman. Oh, so did you start? I started last time. Okay.
Got a little bit there. But, okay. So, another one of the main things we can do for law enforcement is look at what, how, and when they respond to things. For instance, you wouldn't call a cop if you needed a firefighter. So I would propose that we would, instead of having just EMT firefighters, we also have a division of mental health professionals that can come out to, assist. Instead of just being assigned to the police, I think it would be better that they're separated, just for independence sake. And another thing we can look at is recidivism. We can look at ways to help people stay out of prison, and just basic reform on the whole system itself, the punishment process. Maybe some things should be fines rather than hard jail time, if they're non-violent. Things like that. Bail reform.
Okay. Like I said, policing is generally a local issue. So what can the federal government do to do this? And it's basically funding. It's incentivizing ways to, rather than focus on drug interdiction and enabling police to get, SWAT type equipment and military style equipment, is to help them by incentivizing ways that the local police can develop trust between themselves and the local communities that rely on them for their services. So that's really the thing that the federal government can do from a congressional level, is to set out the rules and enable funding to go towards trust building rather than creating high profile militaristic types of engagements. I mean, a very simple example right now are the ICE raids that are happening. It's that kind of military style policing that just is not productive. And so, on the federal level, you incentivize through grants to local police forces to be able to build trust in the community, between community members and between the police and their communities.
Did Julie get on from you? Did. Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks, Bill. I'm going to skip over ICE. I think ICE and immigration and the current war of terror, not the war on terror in our streets, would take another 90-minute to 2-hour forum. I want to focus on law enforcement at the state and local level. I worked with a research firm that was looking at recruitment for the military and public safety Some of you may know that recruitment for the military is way down. All 4 branches have been struggling to meet their numbers, and that problem is even worse at the state and local level when it comes to recruiting public safety officers, especially firefighters and police officers. There's some stigma, there's some hostility, and I think folks are worried about coming into the profession. The federal government can and does help. There's something called the Community-Oriented Policing Grants, or COPS for short. That, even though it hasn't been authorized, has been funded at about $685 million per year for the last 5 to 10 years. There is currently a bipartisan bill in Congress, HR 3500, named the COPS Act, that would actually double that to almost $1.2 billion per year. That's money that goes straight to state and local public safety to help them develop better ways to recruit, better ways to train, better ways to build trust with the people they serve and protect. When I'm in Congress, if it doesn't pass this year, we will pass the COPS Act. The way you back the blue is to make sure that they get what they need so they can protect the people they serve. Thank you.
When I was 11, I had my first mental health crisis. And since I had a cop, or as an uncle, I had been told multiple times, if your life is in danger, you call 911. So I did. But now, if that were to happen to an 11-year-old like me, I would call 988. It was a great resource and it needs to be funded. As I said before, part of my current job is doing crisis intervention trainings. I go and I share my story, my mental health recovery story, and then I also do suicide prevention, both evidence-based. I see my future role as representative to build a bridge between law enforcement and communities, while also recognizing that we need to have clear and consistent consequences for officers that harm the community. The reason that there is a stigma is because there has been a lot of misdeeds. There's been a lot of lack of accountability, and we can call for that while also completely supporting our officers. We can call for more consequences and fund mental health resources so that cops don't have to go to that 11-year-old girl who is dealing with a mental health crisis. Instead, a social worker can. And we still need to invest in education for our cops so that they know how to do de-escalation, so they understand what a psychosis is, so that they know that sometimes just drugging people and then putting them aside can make long-lasting trauma for the individual who's already going through a health crisis.
Okay, here we go. I'm once again going to sing the praises of the Minnesota legislature, and our own Dan Wolgamott authored this legislation. It's called the Minnesota Scholarship Act, and it's full tuition incentives for Minnesota police officers and their dependents if they're attending Minnesota universities. And this is to attract and retain good police candidates. So once again, that's another great thing. Kudos to that. I very much support that. I think I would support and continue to fund the COPS Act, as Doug mentioned. It's community-oriented policing. It's a department in the DOJ. These funds improve community policing for hiring, training, equipment upgrades, and mental health support for our officers. I fully support the police, and some people think Tom Emmer is strong in this area of supporting law enforcement, but how supportive is he really? When police officers were attacked on January 6th, and a lot of them hurt and some of them killed, Emmer called it legitimate political discourse. How supportive is it when Tom Emmer, as Trump's campaign manager, brought him to St. Cloud for a rally and then left St. Cloud and the police department with a $200,000 debt? Okay, we need to support law enforcement with our actions as well as our words.
In CD6, along with around the country, police forces are being asked to do more with less. We have departments that are understaffed. We have budgets that are stretched thin. Officers are being asked to respond to mental health crises, domestic violence, addiction, things that they haven't even been trained in, and they don't have the tools or support that they need. So some of the things that I want to do as an elected leader, my role is to support law enforcement and the communities that they serve. It's not picking sides. We need to bring everyone to the table to work on solutions together. So that includes maybe better training, maybe having more resources to that. Training that doesn't include warrior training, which is what the Minneapolis Police Department had when it was to, okay, how do you respond to someone who's aggressive? To be more aggressive. That's not going to do us any good there. And we want to make sure that we have policies that support accountability and transparency. Not as punishment, not as, hey, you did something wrong, so we're going to hold you necessarily accountable, but really as a foundation for trust. If the police are able to trust the community and the community is able to trust the police, then everyone feels safer. They don't feel that they're at odds with each other, but they feel better about where they're at. And so I'm going to try to lead this with empathy, data, and respect for everyone, because the police are public servants, but I also need to care about the people that they serve as well. Thank you.
All right, sweet. So when it comes towards supporting our police, one thing that I can do at the federal level is put in laws and regulation to overhaul how the state's local law enforcement and just law enforcement in general works. If there's one thing that I am really big on is civil service. It's mainly because, guess what, I was in the military, and one of the things that I learned was how to essentially make a job worth it. So when I was in the military, I was essentially an international police officer. We all get put on a military pay scale. That's what I want to give all of our officers. It's just a military pay scale, and then guarantee them 50 hours. But however, the states and a lot of local communities might not like this, but we need to regionalize our police. We need to consolidate them all together. Because I'm sorry to say it, all these police departments who are buying all this military gear, they don't need it. They're just wasting taxpayer dollars. They really are. Like, I saw up in Alexandria, the sheriff, they had night vision. All of their sheriffs, and even like the actual local police. You don't need night vision. Only like 10 people do. All of you can share. Not everybody is going to go kick in the door. There is a lot of waste and abuse. And part of that is breaking up the monopoly that the union has over it. And that's the thing. In order to fix what's going on with America's police, we can't nationalize it because of the 10th Amendment, but what we can do is treat it like how the National Guard is.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, too much time.
Yep. Thank you. And again, let's hear it for our team here. All right, so we're in our final topic, and then we have just two quick questions after that. So, with public safety threats rising, both at home and abroad, including global conflict, political violence, and domestic unrest, what is your view of Congress's constitutional role in decisions about war and national security? So another very easy question to do in 90 seconds. And so we'll start, this one we'll be starting back with Bill Brad.
Okay, so Congress's role in war and national security is very clear. Congress declares war, and that's it. I mean, that is it. And so Congress allocates the funds. They're the ones who who do that. We have a situation now where we have a chief executive that is absolutely out of control. General Mattis, you know, when he was the Secretary of Defense, said about foreign aid and diplomacy, if you don't fully fund USAID, not dismantle USAID, fully fund USAID and the State Department, he'll need to buy more bullets. And so Congress is the one who helps build our institutions that are crucial to national security, and that is not only the military, it's the full suite, the three legs of the national security stool: diplomacy, development, and defense. And Congress is the one who tells our chief executive what to do in these matters. And they have abdicated their responsibility, aided and abetted by Tom Emmer, and that is at the cornerstone of why I am interested in unseating him the rest of it.
Well, how do you follow that? So, when you make a to-do list, you always put the most important thing first. And if you look at the Constitution, that's what the founders did. Article 1 isn't about the president, it isn't about the courts, it's about Congress. Congress is at the center of everything we do, and it includes the war power. Now, there have been some adjustments to that. There's something called the War Power Resolution, which was passed in 1973. A president can send troops into a situation, but has to notify Congress within 48 hours, and then there's a 60-day period for Congress to issue what's called an authorization for the use of military force. That has been a topic in law schools ever since it passed. It's been a source of friction between presidents of both parties and Congresses of both parties, but it's a very important part of what we do. Congress is still the final word on national security and war in this country. And when I'm in Congress, I will make sure that happens. One thing that's very inside baseball that maybe not a lot of people are paying attention to is something called the Gang of Eight. The Gang of Eight are the majority and minority leaders of both chambers, as well as the majority and minority leaders of both intelligence committees. They are supposed to be consulted before the president does anything like what happened in Iran earlier this year. That did not happen. Any president, especially this president, has to respect the congressional war power, because that is what makes our country a democracy, not a monarchy.
As both of them have said, Congress has the constitutional right to declare war. It's in Article 1. That way, people have a say, like us, the people, instead of the executive just taking it and running with whatever they want to be doing. But for basically my entire lifetime, we've had an executive who will go out and fight, or to tell people to fight, without ever having to declare war. We need to take the power back to the people and have people actually represented. Most people don't know the 3 branches of government. Like the education in this country, it needs to be increased. We need to respect and demand of our representatives that they represent us. It's very frustrating. I'm very passionate about it. So what's my role in the decisions about war and national security? To consult with you guys, to give you guys the information I have, and then bring it back to them, and then also probably hold in confidence certain things that don't need to be in public. But ultimately, it's about what do the people want? Do we want to spend money over on wars, or do we want to spend money here? So that's what I would.
Okay, originally the founding fathers gave the sole power to declare war to Congress. The only way the executive branch could do anything was if they were attacked, and then they could defend themselves. And they did this so that we'd be less likely to enter war. That's how it all started out. What Doug said, that the law in the 1970s was passed, but what happened at 9/11 was very, very significant. A bill or an act was passed called the Authorization of Military Force. And George Bush Jr. was the first one to implement that against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. So what it did is gave the executive branch nimble orders to be able to go after terrorist groups and do it quickly. And so that has really diluted Congress's power to have anything to say about our military activity. Bill Clinton's instituted it, Obama's instituted it, and now Trump is instituting it. And they've had military action in Africa, Middle East, and South Asia. So what needs to happen is this authorization of military force needs to be repealed and replaced and revised to be able to give the power back to Congress, which was originally supposed to be the body that would have the final say. So I would be in support of revising this authorization of military force to give that back to Congress.
So we've discussed the constitutional authority of Congress, but I think we also in Congress have the moral authority Because the founding fathers understood that if the president is able to do that, that's one person who's going to be able to decide who's going to fight these wars. But we need to make sure that it's Congress that's able to do that, because we are the voice of the people. We're supposed to represent you and have debate, have accountability, and making sure that you are being represented while we're doing that there. It's supposed to be 3 independent branches of the government, and we don't quite understand that. I mean, Mike Johnson literally handed the speaker's gavel over to Trump during one of the bill signings. Like, that is unacceptable. We're supposed to be co-equal and independent branches of the government. So we've talked about it here. I would also repeal and replace the AUMF, making sure that any engagement is defined, it's time-based, and it's subject to oversight. You know, the last thing we want to do is go into Afghanistan for another 20, 30 years and not have an exit plan or not have a reason of why we're there and what we're going to do there. Congress needs to be able to see that and understand what's happening. The other thing that we want to talk about too is national security. We got to make sure that it's about diplomacy, it's about alliances, it's about working on our cybersecurity infrastructure. I mean, St. Paul government just gave us an alert to say cybersecurity was impacted there. So Congress needs to be able to make sure that we're working together with our allies, making sure that we understand we're trading national security, we're understanding diplomacy around the world, and that we're working together on our own infrastructure to make sure that we can have oversight of that.
So one thing I'm gonna do is, like we do need to reform the use of military force, but however, we cannot just go in there and peel it. You're going to tank our economy. You're going to destroy our economy. This is one of them things everybody's got to understand. We cannot go in there and just rip things out. That's how you get Elon Musk Doge stuff. So for those that don't know, our entire economy and currency is based off the goods and services that we provide the world. We have military bases all over the place. We have like hundreds all over. If you remove that use of force, a lot of those democracies are going to look at us again, see us turning our backs like we did to Ukraine, just like we did to the Kurds. And guess what? Now all of them are going to look at the world reserve currency, the dollar, and they're going to start dumping it. So no, we cannot just go in there and just willy-nilly remove things. We have to be smart, strategic, and that's one of the big things I am going to try to hit on, is making sure our military is being used smartly and responsibly. Because I have been at the butt end of the stick and quite literally had my pants pulled down twice now, trying to fight the good fight and fight for democracy. So we just need to be responsible with our military. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, so it seems like we're all on the same page about the AMUF and repealing that and altering the way it works in general. One things I want to do is I want to basically use the Constitution to fight the best we can. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we can do, like nobody ever talks about using the constitutional powers to repeal H.R. 1 and replace it, which is completely feasible and something they could do, but they tend to let procedural things get in their way when they're the ones that are making the rules. So they're making the rules that trump the Constitution, and I think we can change a lot of that and just the way we do business day to day. For example, I think it was, if I remember correctly, the Hyde rule that allows the leaders to determine what comes up on the floor, I think that needs to go away. I know there's a lot of Republicans that say it, but I'm in agreement with them on that one. Yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you. Well, let's hear it for this round. We've made this. I'm going to say, looking at the time, as far as what we got for other questions, we only got, the one other question we had was kind of off topic, and so, I'm going to, and given the time, I'm going to drop that. But we will do one question from the audience, and it will be a different time because it can only be 1 or 2 words. So after you answer this next question, then you'll start thinking about this question, which is going to be, what is your favorite band to listen to on a hard day? So that will be the question that comes from there afterwards. You've got this one final question in the role of Congress, and then you'll talk about what your band is. No explanation. You're just going to say the name of the band, which is going to be tough, but you can do it. And then we'll go to our closing comments. So this question here, though, is also it's a good general question. What does public service in Congress mean to you? And how would your leadership prioritize the practical needs of CD6 families? And the first answer on that one will be Doug Chapin.
Thank you. I'm going to stand up because this one fires me up. I love this question. I have worked in public service my entire life and spent a lot of time in elections. What's beautiful about elections and our democracy is that we take this roiling soup of opinions out there and somehow through the ballot box turn it into policy, turn it into direction for our country. When I served in Congress, it was amazing to then watch those votes in the persons of representatives and senators then turn those ideas into actual laws and policy. The way I would lead as your congressman in CD6 is I would not just talk, but actually listen. Hear what people have to say. Don't just wait for election day to decide what our policies should be, but actually go out among people and talk. Unlike the current incumbent, I will commit to regular town halls. Unlike the current incumbent, I will actually respond to your questions and not merely send you a form letter praising the current majority. I believe that representation is a two-way street. You folks send a representative to Washington. He or she is there to represent you and do what you sent them there to do. You are not there to send that person to Congress so that they can raise money or wield power or shout from the podium. I will have a two-way style of government. I believe that's what public service is, that's what public service should be, and that's what public service will be when I am your member of Congress. Thank you.
This is one of the coolest jobs in the world. You're able to listen to people and they gift you the power to then help the entire country, and you also get to do constituent services and help them directly. It baffles me that people take this job for granted. To me, public service means listening to the people I represent and focusing on solutions. I already do this through my education and advocacy, but this job would help so many more people. And yes, this job will inevitably be, in part, political theater. But the vanity and the pettiness and the blue versus red cannot be the core focus of a representative when we can actually put just common sense policies on the table, things that over 80% of people just agree on, no matter the red or blue, just people. I think of the ADA here, the Americans with Disabilities Act. It proves that, yeah, we can write useful legislation that helps people. And yeah, people who are directly impacted by those decisions can be at the table and be a part of those conversations. Public service also means showing up, and I do not mean just a couple phone calls with cherry-picked questions like Tom Emmer is doing. It means going and doing town halls and showing up and being responsible for my actions. My goal is simple, and you should know it by now, is to increase access. Thank you.
Okay. Public service obviously is very important to me as well. I've been a nurse for 40 years, and I've been a nurse in Minnesota for 35, and so I've given care and anesthesia. I'm actually a nurse anesthetist to Minnesotans for that long. I want to focus on the practical part of this question. It talks about practical needs of CD6 families. And what I'm hoping for, I'm an eternal optimist, is that we are going to flip both the House and the Senate, okay? That's what we got to do, all right? We got to do that this time, you guys, in 26. Okay, first, practical needs. When we flip, families need nutrition. We are going to have an opportunity to rewrite legislation that is causing the SNAP benefits to be cut. They're not going to go into effect till 27, so we will have the opportunity when we have the majorities to rewrite that. Right now, Donald Trump, this is the largest cut in SNAP history. It's jeopardizing assistance for 40 million people and potentially causing the closure of many rural grocery stores. Secondly, families need health insurance. As many as 15 million people could lose their health insurance, including 170,000 Minnesotans. Once again, we have the majority in the House and the Senate. We can repeal and rewrite the Medicaid cuts to reinstate the health insurance. We would have time to do that. And lastly, families need a voice. They need a representative that listens to them and represents them, not just the wealthiest 1% and the crypto community, right? So these three things, yeah, okay.
When I think of public service, I see it as more than just politics or gaining power until I get to be the third most powerful Republican in the House, or making as much money as possible by trading stocks. I see it as a responsibility and the representation of this district. You know, my campaign slogan is "We the People," as I mentioned earlier. It's my voice is not my own, but it's yours. I'm here and I'm going to spend more time in Minnesota than I do in DC, because yes, I may go there to vote or write, you know, bills and work in certain committees, but my job is to hear what you guys need, what you all need, what's affecting you. You know, we're all living our day-to-day lives. We're trying to put food on the table. We're trying to keep up with rent. We're trying to make sure our kids are going to a good school and getting good grades. You know, we have our normal day-to-day life, and to have a representative that's going to go into DC, go into Congress, and make sure that they're going to vote for me in every way and represent my benefits, that's one less thing that I need to worry about, versus turning on the news today and realizing, hey, they're cutting Medicaid and the rural hospital close to me might be shutting down. With me in Congress, that's something that you wouldn't have to worry about. Public service is me representing the people, making sure that your voice is being heard and that we're acting together. And it's not about trying to get headlines. It's not about trying to get sound bites. It's about trying to improve the people's lives of this district. Thank you.
So yeah, one thing that I want to do, or like what it means for like me to be like a congressperson, or like get into like the public service, or just service in general, it's just helping people. That's what I want to do. And one thing, like why I really want to run for this seat, is just because like part of me, like I know I can give Tom Emmer a run for his money. Like I went out there, and I experienced a Donald Trump. And guess what? I can run my mouth and just tell the truth about like everything that I saw and all the horrific things. And everybody's just gonna, yeah, dude, here you go. Here's some sympathy cash. Like, I'm sorry to say it, it is pretty easy for me on that part. But like the big thing is, we need to have somebody who is going to think outside the box and really hit home and bring home the cheddar for everybody. Because one thing that I've been trying to hit on is like that big, beautiful bill. It's BS, but how can we utilize it to help our community? The reason why I'm so big on the military is because it's easy to get that money here into our community and help subsidize and organically grow our local economy. A lot of our problems get solved when the economy's doing good. You have health care because your health care is tied to your job for like the young. But I'm sorry, if you're old, I get it. But however, I do support Social Security and Medicaid. We gotta fight back those tax cuts and help out.
Alright, so I think one of the biggest things about this is the position in Congress is one of great responsibility and great respect. And I believe it's a two-way street. I think you have to be as honest and open with me as possible, because otherwise I'm not going to know where you're coming from, where to steer the ship, so to speak. And the other thing is I'm a bit of a social democrat. You know, I like socialism, so I'd like to do things like Medicare for all, universal pre-K, universal SNAP, and how do we pay for these things? We basically have to wage war on wealth. We have to tax the wealthiest among us. Because if we want nice things, that's how we're going to get them. Thank you, guys.
Okay. source of what it means to me to serve in Congress is that we need to stand up for the American people. And how that happens is being present through commitment, sacrifice, and a sharp focus of service to the people of CD6 in Minnesota. And how do we do that? We do that by listening and in the face of the kind of executive that is there, it's really linking that, the people of the district and the state, to the services of the country, and the front lines of that are our government employees who have, and our institutions, who have been frankly eviscerated by assaults from the Department of Government Efficiency and Elon Musk and his enablers. And so the source of that is there. And the connection between the people and the services are those employees, and improving their performance, supporting our institutions, and ensuring that our government employees, our federal employees, are doing the job that they need to do when they need to do it, is in fact right at the front lines of how Congress expresses its power in things. So that's it.
All right, let's hear it, people. Okay, again, what we have is one question from the audience, and we have the 1 minute closing. So this question will start here again, and no timer on this one, because you are just going to answer the question only, and leave us a mystery about this. What is your favorite band? I think you can do singer as well if you want. To listen to on a hard day. Just that answer. All right, go ahead.
Taylor Swift.
Zach Brown Band.
Johnny Cash.
Kenny Loggins.
Zeppelin.
Stand, Bill. I don't know. A tough day, Waylon Jennings.
It's going to sound like I'm pandering, but it's true. Prince.
All right, let's hear it for that. Final statements, and by the way, both of you want to make an announcement, you've got to be up here, it's taking 2 seconds, right? Be ready. I think that this can be, I would say, as a candidate, this is the most terrifying, stressful thing that you could possibly do is answer hard questions in front of people you care about. So let's hear it for these candidates. Good viral moment of anyone saying anything too well. So with that, we are going to start with our final statements, and this will start with Jeanne Hendricks.
As I mentioned earlier, you guys, this is not my first campaign. I was a better candidate in 24 than I was in 22, and I'm a better candidate now than I was last year. I've grown as a candidate. I've been to all the fairs, the parades, monthly Senate district meetings. Last fall, I held a small town tour with town hall meetings in 31 communities across the district in 43 days, right before the election. My connections, my relationships, and my reach has grown over these last 4 years. This election could not be more consequential for the future of our democracy. Minnesota has a huge number of independent voters, and many of them are very terrified, kind of like the rest of us right now. By what they're seeing from the Trump administration, the authoritarian regime, I should say. A lot more people, I think, are going to be opening to listening to the Democratic candidates and seeing what the Democratic candidates have to say and giving a Democrat a chance.
Thank you. I know 1 minute flies by, doesn't it? Yeah.
So we were all up here, we all gave our answers, and they're all very similar. We all have a lot of the same beliefs, a lot of the same policies. which is great for what we're doing here. But I think ultimately what we're looking for is someone who's going to represent us in Congress. We're tired of Tom Emmer being in there and feeling invisible and not heard. And so as I mentioned, my slogan is "We the People." I'm going to focus on things like pocketbook issues. Just like in other elections, a lot of people, it's the economy, stupid. It's been hard for a lot of us, focusing on pocketbook issues. Working on a hands-off government. The government should not be getting in your day-to-day lives. You should be able to go to work, go home without worrying about the government impacting what you're doing on a daily basis. And then the third thing is working together with common sense. Here in Minnesota, we are all blessed with Midwestern common sense, maybe a little bit of stubbornness too, but it's working together with red and blue, not giving in on our issues, not giving away, but working with them and making sure that the people benefit from the decisions that we make. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I really don't know what to say for the closing remarks other than I really am just appreciative of everybody's time. That's kind of it. Other than that, just feel free to come ask me questions after this. I'm going to be here for a while. There's a lot of things I wasn't able to get to touch on, like how to actually build the infrastructure for a public healthcare system. Like that's one of the things I want to do. But however, the Republican Party is trying to prevent that. And that's why I keep hitting on the military. Like one of the big things in how to do it is you invest in the VA healthcare system. So that way, we can open it up to their families, their wives and children under 18, keep expanding it, keep building the actual infrastructure, and then overnight, you can actually roll out a public healthcare system. You have to have the infrastructure first, otherwise, sitting there screaming, seize the means of production. No, you're gonna nuke our economy. People's 401ks depend on UHC.
Thank you.
All right, well, I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you for letting me jabber to you guys about all sorts of things. Yeah, I mean, short of that, saying thank you, I'm just going to keep it nice and short here because it's just an ending statement. So, thank you. Look for me around the room. I'd love to chat. Have a good night, guys.
I bring a career service internationally through Peace Corps, Fulbright, USAID in West Africa, Southeast Asia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and also here back home. I've worked in the private industry as well, and I want to focus on the truth in the middle. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think we should focus on finding the truth in the middle. I was, and to create a really strong link between you, the people of CD6, and Congress, and be your representative there. And I want to do that through new technology, find ways where we can have an accountability app, where you're able to give real-time feedback on a particular issue that's important to you, and find a way to translate that up to decisions that are being made and dialogue that's happening on a national level. And so I want to be here for you and represent you to do that.
Thank you, Bill. I've talked a lot about the kind of congressman I hope to be, the kind of person who goes out and listens to you. I have tried to walk the talk, or I guess probably really more drive the talk on this campaign. I bought a new car in February. Look down tonight, it has almost 16,000 miles on it. In the last 4 months, I have been to 10 Senate district meetings, 4 county fairs, rallies in 5 or 6 cities, countless meetings, picnics, 3 pride festivals, 7 parades, at which my partner and I handed out more than 2,000 Freezy Pops and over 250 dog bones. Visibility is important. People need to see their member of Congress and their candidate out among them. The kind of candidate you see is the kind of representative I will be. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. If you want to hear more of me than 90 seconds at a time, we will be gathering over at the Heights Bar and Grill down the street by the golf course. Would love to see you there for a cold beverage of your choice and as much political blather from me as you can stand. Thank you.
I also want to thank you for spending your Thursday night with us. It is getting late. The energy and excitement in this room maybe earlier a little bit more than now, is real, and it makes me genuinely think that we can flip this district. If you are feeling overwhelmed by the news or feeling hopeless and helpless and like you feel terror, please know you are not alone, but we collectively have so much power and we can do great things. My goal with this campaign is to leave the district better than I found it. Because if I'm going to be collecting funds and spending volunteer time and energy, I want to make sure that we are making an impact now and also getting the job. We can build something beautiful here. We can build something better than we currently have. It's not about just fixing things. It's about looking to creative solutions. It's about just feeling hopeful again. Thank you.
Oh, let's hear it, people. Democrat today, but hey, you can be active. We don't have to wait till this election day. You got other stuff you can do right away.
Hey, really quick, so my name is Colton Gratke. I'm the chair here in Senate District 29. As many of y'all have probably heard, there is a special election happening in this Senate District in November now. And filing is now open for that only until August 6th. So if anybody has ever considered running or knows someone who would, feel free to file and then reach out to us either through Facebook or at mnsenatedistrict29@gmail.com.
All right, well, we've got plenty to do. You know, they always say that power goes to people who showed up, and you showed up. Let's keep showing up and let's win. Thank you.